It was just another busy Monday morning at the office, phones ringing, emails piling up, and staff rushing to meet deadlines. But none of them had any idea that someone new was walking through those glass doors, someone who wasn't just there for a job. She wore simple clothes, carried a modest bag, and had a quiet look on her face. To everyone else, she was just another new hire, a young black woman trying to find her footing in a fast-paced corporate world. But what no one knew was that she was actually the daughter of the CEO. After hearing whispers about mistreatment and unfair practices happening on the ground floor, she decided to see things for herself. No one would recognize her without the designer clothes, the last name, or the security team. And that was the point. She wanted to see how employees were really being treated, especially those who looked like her. What she walked into, though, was worse than anything she expected. Within minutes of joining, she was assigned to a team led by a manager known for being strict, though others behind closed doors used far harsher words. It didn't take long before the manager began showing his true colors: dismissive comments, cold instructions, and a clear disregard for anyone who didn't fit his idea of professional. She watched how he spoke to others, how he overlooked the quiet, hard workers, and how he snapped at her without even knowing her name. But just 7 minutes into her first shift, something happened. Something so out of line, so blatantly disrespectful, it pushed her to act, not as a new hire, but as the CEO's daughter. And before the clock hit 10 a.m., the manager's entire world began to shift. Her name was Maya, and this undercover mission wasn't just about proving a point, it was personal. Growing up, she had heard her father talk proudly about the company he'd built from the ground up. He always believed in fairness, in creating opportunities for everyone, no matter their background or appearance. But lately, complaints had started trickling in, quiet ones. The kind of things people only said when they were sure no one important was listening. Employees feeling invisible, good workers being overlooked. Subtle bias turning into clear disrespect. So Maya decided to do something most wouldn't dare. She asked her father to let her go in, not as a VP or executive, but as a new black employee, fresh out of college, applying for an entry-level role. He agreed, though reluctantly. Only a few top people knew who she really was. To everyone else, she was just Maya D. on the paperwork. From the moment she stepped in, the energy felt off. The manager, Mr. Clay, barely glanced at her. His tone was sharp, his patience thin. When she asked a question, he rolled his eyes. When she introduced herself, he cut her off mid-sentence. The team looked exhausted, too tired to speak up, too used to this kind of treatment. One woman even gave Maya a small nod, almost like a warning. Something was definitely wrong here. Maya noticed how different he was with other new hires, especially those who didn't look like her. He cracked jokes, made small talk, even offered extra help. But with her, it was cold instructions and clipped words. And then came the moment that changed everything. Just 7 minutes in, when Mr. Clay said something that crossed a line Maya didn't expect and couldn't ignore. Maya stood there stunned. Mr. Clay had just muttered something under his breath, low enough to pass as a slip, but loud enough for her to hear. It wasn't just rude, it was laced with a kind of bias that made her skin crawl. The way he looked at her, the way he spoke, it was clear he didn't see her as capable. He didn't even see her as someone worth his time. And yet, Maya didn't react, not yet. She needed to understand how deep this went. One comment wasn't enough to expose a broken system. She needed more. As the day went on, Maya quietly observed. She watched how other employees interacted with Mr. Clay, especially the ones who looked like her or came from different cultural backgrounds. There was a pattern. He barely acknowledged their contributions, often assigning them the most tedious tasks. Meanwhile, others with less experience were praised for the smallest efforts. She also noticed how nervous some of the staff were, flinching when he raised his voice, hesitating before speaking up in meetings. The workplace was tense, like people were walking on eggshells just to keep their jobs. In the break room, she struck up a conversation with Jordan, a kind but tired young man from accounting. His eyes lit up at the chance to vent. He'd been with the company for over a year and hadn't once been considered for a promotion. He hinted at others who had quietly left because of Mr. Clay's behavior. "He doesn't say anything outright," Jordan explained, "but you just feel it. Like no matter how hard you work, he's already decided your worth." Maya nodded, absorbing every word. She was no longer just undercover. She was witnessing the kind of discrimination that lives in silence, and something had to give. By the second hour, Maya had seen enough to understand that this wasn't just about one manager with a bad attitude. It was about a culture that had slowly allowed someone like Mr. Clay to gain power unchecked. She continued moving through her tasks quietly, listening more than she spoke, taking mental notes of everything. She saw how co-workers avoided Mr. Clay's office unless absolutely necessary. How he always interrupted when women spoke, especially black women. And how, behind his charm when upper management was nearby, there was a coldness he didn't bother to hide when they weren't. Word started spreading that a new girl was asking too many questions. One of the team leads warned her in passing, "Keep your head down. Clay doesn't like people stepping out of line." Maya smiled politely, but inside, her frustration was building. It wasn't just her being disrespected. It was everyone who had been silently dealing with it for months, maybe even years. She watched Clay in the afternoon team meeting, talking over ideas, rejecting input without a glance, and giving credit to his favorites. The tension in the room was thick, the kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Maya spoke up just once, offering a thoughtful suggestion. He shot it down immediately, saying, "That's not how we do things here." No explanation, no discussion, just a dismissal, followed by an awkward pause. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Maya received a private message on the company's system, an anonymous tip. It read, "You're not the first he's tried to push out. If you're really here to help, now's the time." Her heart pounded. Someone had figured out she wasn't who she claimed to be. The walls were closing in, and Mr. Clay's behavior was only getting bolder. Something was about to explode. Maya stared at the message, her fingers frozen above the keyboard. Someone inside the company not only knew her real identity, they were encouraging her to act. It wasn't just about watching anymore. It was about stepping in. But the message raised a new question: who else knew? And more importantly, who was watching her as closely as she'd been watching Mr. Clay? The stakes had officially shifted. She didn't have long to think before things took another unexpected turn. Later that afternoon, Maya was called into a closed-door meeting. Mr. Clay was waiting, arms crossed, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. He accused her of creating tension in the team and overstepping her position. He even slid a printed complaint across the table, unsigned, vague, but enough to make the moment feel serious. Maya kept her expression calm, but inside she was burning. Not just from the blatant attempt to intimidate her, but from the realization that someone was trying to cover for him, possibly even frame her as a problem before she could expose him. Meanwhile, word of her presence was spreading faster than she expected. One by one, employees started treating her differently, some curious, others distant. Jordan wouldn't even make eye contact. A woman from HR stopped by her desk with an awkward smile, asking if everything was all right. The pressure was closing in from all sides. That night, Maya received another message, this time with a file attached. Security footage. It showed Clay berating an employee in a private hallway. No witnesses, no cameras supposed to be there. But someone had kept the recording. Someone who'd been waiting for the right moment. Now Maya had more than just her own experience. She had proof, but using it meant blowing her cover. And she wasn't sure who she could trust anymore. The next morning, Maya arrived earlier than usual. She had made up her mind. The footage was undeniable, and the anonymous messages had confirmed what she suspected. This wasn't just about one bad manager. This was about protecting the people who'd been overlooked, silenced, and pushed out. It was time to act. She walked straight to the executive floor. The receptionist looked confused. Maya hadn't taken the elevator to this level once during her time undercover. But when she asked to speak with her father, the CEO, there was no hesitation. Within minutes, they were sitting face to face in his glass-walled office. She handed him the footage and laid out everything she had seen, heard, and experienced. Every subtle insult, every ignored voice, every moment that proved Mr. Clay wasn't just unprofessional, he was a threat to the company culture her father claimed to value. Her father listened quietly. At first, there was disbelief, then a heavy silence. He picked up the phone without a word and asked for an emergency meeting with HR and legal. Within the hour, Mr. Clay was called upstairs. He entered confidently, unaware that everything was about to change. Maya didn't speak during the meeting. She didn't need to. The footage spoke louder than any words could. The anonymous messages, the employee testimonials she had gathered. One by one, the lies began to unravel. Mr. Clay's face changed as he realized he wasn't in control anymore. He was fired on the spot. But just as Maya began to feel the weight lift, a final twist hit. The head of HR pulled her aside and quietly said, "You should know, this isn't the first complaint. Someone above Clay signed off on every dismissal. You've exposed him, but he wasn't acting alone." The real cleanup had only just begun. Maya stood still for a moment, processing what she'd just heard. Mr. Clay was gone, but the problem ran deeper than she imagined. It wasn't just one manager. It was a system that had let him operate unchecked. The HR director's words echoed in her head as she walked out of the office. Someone higher up had been protecting him, and now that person would have to answer for it too. In the days that followed, a quiet storm moved through the company. An internal audit was launched. Employees were invited to confidentially share their stories. The once quiet halls were filled with whispers of change. Maya's identity was no longer a secret, but instead of fear or resentment, her presence brought something different, hope. People started speaking up, not just about Mr. Clay, but about the smaller moments they had ignored for too long. The favoritism, the microaggressions, the way talent had been buried under bias. Jordan stopped by her desk on her last day undercover. He smiled and said, "You really shook things up. Thank you." Maya smiled back, knowing that this had never been about catching one man. It was about making space for voices like his. Her father asked her to stay, to help reshape the company culture. She agreed, but on one condition: real change, not just surface fixes. Training, accountability, new leadership in HR, a seat at the table for the people who'd been pushed aside for too long. Maya came in as a quiet, underestimated new hire. She left as a force that sparked a transformation, and the company, once blind to its own shadows, had finally begun to see the light. Sometimes, change doesn't start from the top. It walks in through the front door wearing a name tag.